Hey, what's going on, everybody? Shinmoku here, and today I'm just going to be taking a look at all the SPL teams. Um, this may seem like it's kind of coming out of nowhere. I actually meant to do a sort of like set matches review type thing, but I realized as I was going through, I was just explaining like my thoughts on all of the teams anyways, and it kind of just became me just giving my thoughts and opinions on the teams, and then sort of going through the matches because I just ran out of time. So I figured I would just do a little intro bit here, where I go through each of the teams, give my thoughts on all of them, and where I think they'll stand. This might seem a little unfair, just because we know the standings now. We're a little bit into the split now. We've seen a bunch of sets with all the different teams, but honestly, I feel like it's more interesting this way. I feel like just bullshitting predictions, and it's always cool to go back to predictions and stuff and be like, oh, hey, you're right about this, you're wrong about that. That's interesting too, but the actual video itself at the time is just like you're just kind of spitballing, seeing what just kind of guessing, right? You can make educated guesses, of course. SPL's been around for a long, long time now. Whole lot of veterans playing. You can try and make your guesses. But I don't know. I kind of prefer it when you're analyzing it in the thick of it. That's what I prefer. But let's get into it. So we're just gonna go through and game in here because they actually have a really cool. I never really explored it, but yeah, this is a great little page for the SPL. So let's get into it. First off, Jade Dragons. I mean, we all know Jade Dragons. So this one's easily going to be my first seed. I think everyone would probably agree with that. They're just kind of ridiculous. So this is the Ghost Squad from last season, except they swapped out Captain Twig for Herwind in the mid lane. And I think Herwind's a really solid player. I mean, he's definitely the question mark for me. You see Herwin playing a lot of Giannis, and he's just popping off, right? But that's his Giannis, right? When he goes off it, we've seen him on Scylla and Tiamat as well. He's more sort of sitting back doing his thing, and I think that honestly works for Jade Dragons. That honestly works because the rest of them can just do their thing, and as long as they're doing it well and Herwin's at least comfortable in playing whatever character it is, then he's probably going to do all right. But I definitely don't think he's a star player despite his crazy good Giannis. Obviously the best Giannis in the world, but still a bit of a question mark for me on him, but I don't think he's ever going to turbo in or anything like that. And no offense to Captain Twig, but his mid-lane performance is not great. So I think by default, Herwind is an upgrade for the team, and upgrading the already extremely dominant Ghost Gaming team, that's a recipe for success right there. So easily, I think my first place ranking for them. So next up is actually, I could just go in order, right? Yeah, that's smarter. Good job, me. Next up, I have Camelot Kings, probably for second place, I think. So actually a really solid EU team. I know not all of them are in EU. Some of them are in Atlanta. I think they're pretty much an even split. They got the boy Netroid and ADC, which is awesome to see him land on a team. Genetics, good to see. Then BMT in mid, Twig and jungle again, and Variety and solo. Variety's obviously really great. He's a great solo laner. You can pretty much always rely on him to do decently. So I feel like he's a good solo laner to have. And then jungle Captain Twig has been a bit of a question mark. How's he gonna readapt to jungle? But it seems like he's just been missing jungle because he's been doing really well. So that's already a good sign. There's a bit of a question mark about it, but that question mark's pretty much gone. He seems really comfortable. Not the best jungler in the SPL right now, but I think he's really solid. And then BMT, I think, was one of the most underrated mid laners ever in this game. He's just the most consistent player I think I've ever seen, pretty much, other than maybe Yaman from way back when. But yeah, BMT just always bringing the pain, has just the greatest god pool. Nothing too... He doesn't have just one specific playstyle. He likes certain gods. He's got artillery. He's got crowd control. He's got burst damage mages. He kind of covers the whole spectrum and plays them all very well. So I think it's a bit like Variety, where you got like a really good mesh of a god pool. And then Twig, I think they're kind of just going to have him flex a little bit in the jungle, depending on what comp they want to go. And then Genetics, what didn't have the best performance in the SPL ever. Obviously, he didn't really get too much time in the SPL, but you could see the potentials there. But I would say he's probably the weakest player on the team. But I mean, that being said, like if they can get a mesh going where they can try and play to Jadenix's strengths and or maybe just have him on something comfortable while they carry him, like Jade Dragons have with Herwind. I think you're looking at a really solid second place team. I just don't see them winning, if that makes sense. I don't see these guys as world champs, but I see them getting really close, like Radiance from last year. So let's look at this. I think Leviathans are up next. There's a bit of a question mark on these guys because this is they have a bit of a swap. They have Julio in the solo, and Yorkor is now a hunter. Of course, Netrog went to Camelot Kings. So this was your number 1 seed, split 1 of season 7. And then they just kind of fell off, and they became more of a midfielder, and then they got beaten by Renegades. So it was kind of like, was that just a one-time thing, or what? Of course, with their performance recently, you could say, hey, maybe actually what the fluke was when they were playing poorly. That was the fluke. They're actually really solid players. And I think that's probably the analysis I'm going to go with. I think they're going to really bring it. As a solid number 3. I think my number 3 and number 4 are going to really flip-flop a lot. But I really think Leviathans, especially when it's their meta, are just going to crush it. When Panatom can be aggressive and get rewarded for it, when Rongyu can flex his mechanics, and Yarkor actually has been... Yeah, I think everyone saw that clip of him soloing Barracuda, which was hilarious, by the way. But it was he really seems to just, he's like Twig. He's just right back into this other role immediately at a high level. It's like, oh, okay, cool. And then Shinto, a lot of people just pray. I mean, he's a really aggressive player with super high. I almost said mechanical fidelity. That is the most fluff sentence, but he really is. He really is a really great player. And Julio. Big surprise for me. I always thought of Julio as like, oh, this is a solid challenger level soul laner, but he's just bringing the pain every match, and just really impressed with him. We have to see a shift in the soul lane meta to really get a feel for him, because right now it's just King Arthur or Cullen, and then of course he has his one trick, which is Tyr. And he seems really comfortable in the Tyr, but then on other stuff, he just seems pretty decent. So I'd like to see a shift when a shift in the soul lane comes, see how he adapts, and go from there. Yeah, that's that team done. Wow, the great transition itself. So next up here, I got good old Tartarus Titans. So this is a really interesting team, and I'm gonna be looking out for them. Again, another one I don't necessarily see as champions, but I do see them as sort of like SSG from last season, where they're going to come through and have a really, really nice split at some point. They have Cyclone, Aurora, Paul, Scary D Jungle, which is a big question mark, and Solo Lane Benji. So Paul, of course, is the best mid in the world. I don't want to hear anything else about it. Aurora, people give Aurora a lot of credit. I mean, he's a world champion and everything, and he's obviously a great personality, great guy. But I definitely don't love I haven't loved his play for some time now. He seems to get caught out all the time doing ridiculous, stupid stuff. So I'm not the biggest buff of Aurora. Aurora's play, at least. Of course, as a person, he's a great guy. And then Cyclone Spin is a solid average ADC, I would say at best. He doesn't wow me ever, really, but he's got really decent mechanics, and he just needs to sit back and do his thing. And I think he can do well, but I feel like he's another Whirlwind, right, where you got to have the rest of the team has to be on it, or else you're not really going to see him shine. And that's a big question mark when it comes to Scary D, as well as Benji. So with Scary D, of course, he's going from solo to jungle. Pretty massive difference between those two roles. But I think he can do it. I think he's skilled enough to, by the end of the season, have a really decent jungle. But it just kind of waits to be seen. He had a really great Raven game. We all saw that one. But, that was only one time, and then the other times we've watched him play, it didn't look great. In fact, it looked kind of terrible at some points. And then Benji of course, one of the best solo laners still, but he just seems to have these moments where he really doesn't doesn't look like his monitor is turned on, and he's just kind of in between 4 enemies with none of his team near him, like that Phoenix dive on left the last game of the day, I think, last weekend. And man, it's just some of the decision making, like his laning, great. His laning is fantastic. He's a great lane bully, super aggressive. His mid game's good too, but then when it gets to late game, he just kind of seems to run around, just being Benji, which I respect, and it works when they're ahead. But I think when it comes to his macro play, definitely needs some work. There's a buzzword for you. So then after Tartarus Titans, I have Bolts. Of course, these are my boys, right? Like Barracuda has always been nice to me. Jake and Haddix, they're always nice to me. And then the other 2 guys, I don't care. But seriously though, Barracuda, he has his on days and his off days. Some days he looks like, wow, where's this Barracuda been all this time? And then there's other times where it's like, oh, it's this Barracuda where we're sitting in lane, chilling. And of course, this has been offset a little bit by Awesome Jake's play. He's of course very aggressive, and they seem to like to play around Jake a lot, which I agree with. Actually. I think Jake's a lot better than people give him credit for. Of course, people have given him credit by now. It's been a whole season, but I think playing around Jake is a lot better a strategy than people think. And then Venenu is more of like an artillery mid laner. The big if for me, Haddix is great, by the way. He's been of course, you guys may know I've watched Haddix for a very long time, subbed to him almost 2 years, and I think he's been SPL ready for over a year now, to be honest. And I think you're going to see great things from Haddix this season, and I think he can land himself on an even better team, even if Bolt's personality-wise is more his lane. But the big if for me is Lasbra. You see, Lasbra sometimes can just be like, whoa, oh my god, this is the hyper carry jungler of the century right here. And then a lot of the time, though, he's just kind of missing his abilities, doing like activating beads for no reason when nothing's hitting him. Probably trying to do like a cool prediction or something like that. But his judgment on those, it doesn't seem great. Like his micro play it's not great, I don't think. And sometimes he seems like he's really solid, but the thing is, when he's on it, he's not like Panatom, where like he's on and off, but when he's on it, oh my god, best jungler in the game. When he's on it, he's just okay, is the thing. He's just an average jungler when he's on it. And then when he's off it, it just seems like he shouldn't be there. No offense, of course. I do think he has the potential to be an average jungler or above average jungler all the time. Spin the bins on it, be like above average sometimes and average most of the time. It's just a big if for me, and I think if the jungle meta shifts a little bit and it's even more out of his favor than it is right now, Bolts could really suffer. So next up we have Oni Warriors, and this is an odd team because again, a lot of EU guys. Not everyone is in EU, but namely the most vocal one about it was Dardes. He's saying, man, this is almost unplayable. Trying to play Afro on this ping was almost undoable, and that's really unfortunate. But I mean, I'm just being honest here. This team kind of seems like leftovers to me. Now, Nika, really solid solo laner. Neilma, possibly the best support, but PBM probably takes that. But then the rest kind of seem like leftovers to me. Like third best and below is what Qvo, Dardes, and Vote have always kind of seemed to me. Now, jungle isn't exactly stacked this season, so Qvo, of course, is just in the top 3 by default, in my opinion. But really, this team just reeks of just the kids picked last, just all clumped together in one team. Because they're not bad players, it's just a bunch of average dudes stuck on a team together. And Dardes has had his pop-off moments. Neil has had his pop-off moments. Nika too. But Qvo and Vote, especially Vote, just really don't have that big, wow, that was a great game by that player type of moment. Even on PK, Qvo really struggled with the whole, with being a star in any match. He was almost never the MVP on that team. And I think that goes for most of the players on here, other than Neil. They're just not the best, and I don't think they're going to be above average. To be honest, I think they're definitely going to be more towards the bottom, if not just a midfielder. So next up, surprisingly, so this is the final two here. We have our Valhalla Valkyries and Solar Scarabs. I'm gonna go Solar Scarabs here. Um, so this team has a lot to prove. So of course we have Zapman, two-time world champ, been around forever. But then we have Inbound, Baronic, Layers, and SOT. So you have a lot of challenger players coming into the SPL here, or players who have had some SPL experience, but only very little now coming into the SPL full time. Um, so I think they're gonna have a lot of growing pains, and they're kind of gonna be a free win for a lot of the season. But they, of course, all mechanically are gods. And I think once they start to figure things out, they're really going to start to claw their way out of the bottom. But I think they're going to stay in the bottom for most of the split, I think. And then maybe in the second split, by the end of the season, they're going to be able to get to more of the midfield, possibly, if other teams don't adapt or can't all get to North America. Little things like that. I mean, I do have faith that they can do it, right? Like they can get to the midfield. But SOT always struck me as just very on and off. Layers pretty unproven in the SPL. His super aggressive playstyle was awesome in the challenger circuit, but I think it might get punished more in the SPL, especially against teams like Jade Dragons or Leviathans or Camelot Kings. They're just gonna crush any sort of hyper aggressive playstyle that these guys might want to try. Baronic, I really don't have too much opinion on. Unfortunately, I just really haven't seen him around too much. And then Inbound is a bit more of an on and off support. Sometimes he just flexes those insane mechanics, and it's just like, especially on Umoja as well. It's like, what? Oh my god! Oh, okay, you could do that. Okay, sheesh. But then other times, especially when he was on Obey last season, he just had those awful, awful games where he just couldn't get anything done and was just being picked constantly. So, big question mark on Solar Scarabs. And Zap just feeds. I don't know. He just feeds sometimes. Not to be too mean, but like he just feeds sometimes, and he doesn't stop until they lose, or they win. It's really up to the rest of the team sometimes. But no, he could honestly. Oh my god, that was the loudest thing I've ever heard. My bad. I should have gone on D&D. Oh my god, where was I? Zapman. Yeah. So he can have some really hype aggressive plays, and they could really pay off for him. But if a team is well equipped to play around his aggression, like Layers, it's just going to get crushed. So I'm struggling to think of a strategy that they can do that isn't aggression based and isn't going to get just like kicked in the face by especially Jade Dragons. Jade Dragons are really good about punishing over aggression or greediness. So we'll see, I guess. And then in the bottom, for a very good reason, Valhalla Valkyries. So this is Zeros, Zani, Raffer, and Emil. Oh, and their coach is Tigris? Oh, I didn't even know. Oh, okay. I don't know if she has coaching experience. I actually don't know. So, okay. Emil and Raffer, we got to talk about this. I don't want to be too mean. Of course, they're veterans. Was on my favorite team of all time, Energy. That Energy team was probably my favorite in Season 3. But wow. They're just really... They don't look good, boys. I'll be honest. They really don't look good. And this is, of course, we have to say it. They're on EU ping. It is very high. Okay, so keeping that in mind, just being honest about it, it's gonna affect their play. It's clearly affecting their mentality, and they're suffering for it. They just are, and I think they're gonna be stuck at the bottom of the standings this split. Honestly, in some games it just doesn't even seem like they want to be there, to be honest. And Zani looks hungry, right? He's a really decent jungler, especially if he can hyper carry a game. He's like Layers. He's like the EU Layers in that regard. Then Ducky is pretty solid, but a little average to below average, I would say, for Ducky. And then you just got Zeros, who is a really solid player, but has struggled to prove himself. Mechanically and decision making wise to me, and as well as, of course, it has to be discussed because it was displayed publicly, his toxic mindset, and that dripping into the fact that they all are on EU ping. I think that's a recipe for disaster. And I think this team's really going to suffer if they can't get to NA. I think, to be honest, I think that section of it has to change. Because how are you, if you have issues with being, a little harsh, a little toxic, what are you supposed to do? Like, how are you supposed to work on that when you also are understandably displeased about having to play in a pro match on EU ping? Like, how are you supposed to be happy about that? So I'm trying to say, I really get why their mechanics and mentality isn't where it should be, but that doesn't mean that they're where they should be, right? Does that even make sense? Oh my god. Anyways, I think looking at them, I didn't even think they were going to be a midfielder, to be honest. I always thought they were going to be a little lower, but now I think they're going to be at the bottom, knowing that they're pretty much all on EU ping, unfortunately. And we have some unproven skill, and ML's been out of the Pro League for a while too. Some unproven talent on here, as well as a unfortunate mindset. Oh, well, an unfortunate situation where they're all on EU ping, essentially. So that about wraps it up, guys. What did you think about my overview of the SPL teams? Do you agree with my standings? Do you disagree? Will I be proven right? Will I be proven wrong? And I do promise to do this sooner, because, I mean, I'm going to be in SMITE forever, right? I'm never going to leave this game. I'm cursed. But, would you prefer I do this at the start of every split, or should I wait for, like, a week or two to pass and then do my standings, or maybe do both? It's up to you guys. Let me know what you think. Thanks for watching.